So I'm going to talk about a lot of different processes to do something like this, but in a pinch, what I'll end up doing sometimes on a complex surface is I'll go ahead and slice through like where I would want to, close, like say this complex hole here. So I'm going to do a subtool split hidden, and let's go down here to display properties and turn on double temporarily just so I can see a little bit easier. And you're going to see I have line turned off just so we can see the polygons, but we can go ahead and turn that on if we need to. But essentially what I want to do is close this. If I do a geometry close holes, it's going to do, it may do an okay-ish job if it's going to have some weird membranes back through here. You can help it out a little bit by going into your Z modeler brush, BZM, and you can go through here and you can just go through and bridge some areas. Now you only have to do it for half of your model, and I like to use my mouse for this because it's a little bit more steady than my tablet hand. So I'm going to hover over an edge and say bridge edges, and just wherever there's a major turn in my object, I'm going to go and bridge across here. So I'm going to say bridge from this corner to that corner, and that'll fill in this hole nicely. And then for this complex shape here, I might help it out by going, you know what, go from, and this also might help you out. If you hover over a face, say do nothing, and then hover over a point and say do nothing. So all you're going to get is edge operations. We can go to this corner to like maybe say this corner and help it out. And then this complex shape over here, we're going to go ahead and close this off. Because when it's doing close holes, it does the best job it can given the information it's given, but sometimes it can have a little bit of a hard time figuring out where to close these holes. And it looks like I ended past that, so I'm going to go through here real quickly. Now let's go ahead and turn on skin shader 4 so we can actually see a little bit better. So now when I run a close holes, I'm not worried about this side over here. I'm just eyeballing this side over here, and it seems like it did a pretty good job. So to fix, there's no more membrane over here. We have a slight membrane here. So just really quickly, what I can do is I can say, you know what, let's bridge this long edge here all the way down to somewhere past the middle, because I'm going to mirror and weld it over. And in this case, actually, it was a little bit easier to turn off double in that case. So again, I'm going to do a close holes here, and you're going to see this side's nice and clean, there's no membranes, and then this side's kind of messy. No big deal, just do a quick mirror and weld. If you had the opposite side, then you would just do a deformation, mirror in the X, and then mirror and weld. But of course, we're just going to do a mirror and weld, and now we have a nice, tidy, clean cut. No muss, no fuss, just doing a couple of edge bridging. Now I want to show you something that you might be able to utilize on some of your shapes. Not necessarily this one, but I'm going to go out of edit mode, hit always switch, hit control N to clear my canvas, and we'll do this on a sphere, for example. So this was shown by Chi Vang at ZBrush Summit. So I'm going to go to Make Polymesh 3D. I'm going to hit X to go across X symmetry here. Hold down Control Shift, and you're going to see you can do a slice curve and do a very complex slice curve. However, if you isolate this one, Geometry Modified, delete Hidden, and then do a close holes, it's going to do a pretty not a bad job. It's just doing what you're telling it to do, which is to close these holes. It doesn't realize that you want these to be straight across. You can do a mirror and weld to make that a mirrored operation. But if you do want this to be a nice clean cut straight back from here all the way through, what you can do is you can hit W and then Control tap this polygroup. Let's turn off X symmetry temporarily and hold down Alt and reset this. So we're going straight across. We're going to hold down Control and drag, and that's going to add an edge ring here. And that's important if we want to maintain this polygroup back here, because what we're going to want to do is hold down Control Shift and do Control Shift X to expand, which is going to be under Visibility, Grow, Control Shift X. And we're going to hit Control W now, or Control drag to unmask, hit Control W, Control Shift tap to bring everything else back. Looks like it missed one. That's okay. Again, we can go into our Z modeler brush, hold down Alt and start painting, tap Shift, and then just make that a purple polygroup. Now, depending on how we're oriented, oops, looks like I missed this one back here too. There we go. Now again, depending on how we're oriented, if we do a deformation, or I'm sorry, geometry modified topology mirror and weld across the X, that'll go ahead and work, and then we have a nice clean cut all the way across. However, if you were deformation mirrored, if we turn on our floor here, you'll see if we had this on the wrong side and you did a mirror and weld and it did this, just remember you got to go to deformation mirror and then geometry modified topology mirror and weld, and you'll get a nice clean cut. Now that'll work on shapes like this, so you can give that a shot if you want a nice clean cut across an awkward kind of shape, kind of like what we're dealing with here. Is we have a very complex, let's turn off the line, a very complex cut we want to put across here. So if we try to do that, if we hold down Control Shift and isolate this polygroup here, and then we do a subtool split, and then we do a quick geometry, modify topology, close holes. And if you remember, if you turn on line again, this isn't a mirrored operation, so if you want to go ahead and do a quick mirror and weld, that'll make that geometry the same. However, it is, let's turn off our floor, it is going to have a hard time if we go through here and we do display properties double, you're going to see it's going through and it's cutting through here. So if you turn off solo mode and we go to the bottom, this is being kind of overwritten right here. It's getting us kind of a little membrane over here, so that's not ideal. You can try doing this where you hit W and control tap here and then reset this, hold down control, drag out, and then control drag to unmask, control shift tap to isolate this polygroup, control shift X to expand, control W to make that all one polygroup, and then do another mirror and weld. Of course, if it goes to the other side, make sure you do a deformation mirror and then a mirror and weld. And that'll clean up some of it. Surprisingly, that works pretty good, except for, again, if we turn on solo mode, this right here and this right here isn't ideal. So in some instances, and also up here a little bit, it's cutting through just a tad. So close but no cigar. It helps in some areas, it's really nice, and then in other areas not so much. So what we can try and do now is we can manually go through. So we go back to our close holes operation. We can hit W, control tap to isolate or to unmask just that polygroup here. I'm going to hold down Alt, go to Unmask Mesh Center, reset the world axis, and at this point we can go ahead and turn X symmetry back on if we want to. And then we're going to scale this in, or scale this non-uniformly down, scale it non-uniformly in, and just keep doing that and kind of position this so that it's cutting through and being as unobtrusive as possible, as much as possible. In fact, we can scale it this way as well. We're basically just trying to get this out of the way. Now you're going to see we need a little breathing room in here. So let's put in an edge ring. What we can do is if you hold down control and drag, you'll see you can just add edge rings. In fact, if you let go of control while you're dragging, it'll just continue to add edge rings. However, if we wanted to put an edge ring around here, you can't hold down control and scale. It's not going to add an edge ring. However, if you hit Y, which is going to put us into transpose mode, so you're going to see if I hit Y, it's going to toggle transpose mode on and off. We can use the transpose to give us an edge ring. So I'm going to take this, snap to the side of my view here. I'm going to take this outer ring and I'm going to put this to the middle here. And now I'm going to go into scale mode. So WER is move, scale, rotate. So E is going to put us into scale mode. If you hold down control and drag this outside one, you're going to see we can actually scale in an edge ring. It's going to give us a little bit of breathing room around that edge. Again, if we want to grab that edge and make that part of this polygroup, we can. We just hold down control shift X to expand, control W, make sure you unmask first, control W, and now we have a separate polygroup. So now if we go back into gizmo mode, and again we control tap that polygroup here, and we go through and we kind of start scaling. We like scale this in a little bit. Well, now we're grabbing a little bit too much. Let's go back to where we just had that polygroup. We're going to maintain that polygroup just for a little bit longer. Again, control tap to isolate just this teal polygroup here, and we'll leave that edge ring alone for now. Go out of X symmetry, go to Unmask Mesh Center, reset, turn X symmetry back on by tapping X, and now with that extra edge ring, we might have enough leeway. Again, we'll go ahead and scale this down, scale this in, and even if you want to, you can go in with your move brush. If it's just giving you a problem, let's turn off line. If it's just giving you a problem like right here, we're having a little bit of a problem, you can go through and just move these verts up a bit. So those cuts will be relatively clean. Looks like it's clean everywhere else. We're getting a slight indentation here, but we can clean that up manually. If that's the worst of it, I think we'll be okay. We can go ahead and scale it. So again, we're just doing non-uniform scales just to kind of collapse this down, but still get a nice clean line along here. And again, it's not ideal in all areas, so you can continue to kind of play around with this and see if you can get into a more ideal cut along here. But I think that'll work okay. So I'm going to control drag again, or actually we need to turn Dynamesh on. So now we've got that Dynamesh, and then on the head back here, we'll probably need to do the exact same thing. So we'll just go ahead and do a close holes, mirror and weld, W, control tap this, let's go to Unmask Mesh Center, reset the world axis, hit Y to go into transpose mode, hold down control. You can do control shift as well. I think it might constrain it. Oops. Hit Q to go, go into scale mode, hold down control. And then go hit Y to go back into gizmo mode, and we'll use our gizmo. And then again, use our move brush to take care of any of these. And I forgot to turn X symmetry back on so we can mirror and weld this, but I think that'll work good enough. So control drag, do a quick mirror, mirror and weld, turn X symmetry back on. Oops, not quite. What about this little mid part here? So again, we'll go ahead and set this to the middle here. Trying to get this pink out of the way of this section right here. I think that'll work. Control drag. Go ahead and turn on Dynamesh. And if you don't need this polygroup anymore, you can just hit Control W, make it all one polygroup here. And now we have a little bit of a cleaner cut around here. So we hold down Shift and Smooth. You can see we can start, you can actually go back in here with H-Polish and kind of clean these edges up a little bit. And if you wanted to have this polygroup and then to do Control-Shift-X to expand and isolate just this polygroup, you could do that as well. In fact, let's give that a shot. Let's turn our lines back on. We'll go back to where we had our kind of little weirdo polygroup in the middle. Hold down Control-Shift, Control-Shift-X to expand. Control-W to make that a new polygroup. And then with this available to you, you can try to go and isolate maybe just this one and maybe run maybe some sort of polish by feature to see if you can clean up this a little bit. It's getting that warbling from the cut across here. When I did a mask, it didn't do a really clean slice. But at the end of the day, you can just go in here, isolate this, go in here with your H-Polish brush, and then just very quickly kind of go through and clean this up. A little bit of H-Polish, a little bit of smooth, and you should be in pretty decent shape. Again, not the prettiest shape in the world, but if we're just doing a quick kind of breakdown, that should be okay. And it looks like when I scaled it, or when I did my Dynamesh, it kind of messed this up a little bit. In this case, it's easy enough to fix. We can go through here. Let's go ahead and mask out half of this. Let's turn off X symmetry. We'll go ahead and mask this out. And then we can go through here with our clip brush. And we'll go ahead and just Alt-Tap and pass a line right down here. Go ahead and clip that back. And really, in this case, we can even go in here with our... Yeah, it looks like when I did my polish by features, it started polishing out here. So we're going to go ahead and just undo back before we did that. We'll leave that nice and straight. So don't do polish by features. That's going to cause you some problems, it looks like. So we're going to go back here and do turn this back into a Dynamesh. And there we go. We'll avoid that external line there. But again, all we got to do is go through here and do a little bit of smoothing, and then maybe a little bit of H-Polish to get rid of this warbling that's going along this wobbled edge here. And again, this isn't super clean. It's not. You could go through here and you could try and pass like a complex Boolean model if you want to Z-model that. I'm going for a little bit more of a quick and dirty solution in this case. And again, if I wanted to rebuild this at any point, I certainly could. Let's go ahead and turn on X symmetry here. And again, if you're ever running into any problems with smooth and kind of fractured ends or hole-filled ends in here, remember you can turn on smooth with Sculptris Pro turned on, and it might be able to alleviate some of that. But in this case, I think we're in good shape. And the exact opposite thing on this end here. We have this Dynameshed out. Go ahead and smooth these areas out a little bit, and use H-Polish if you need to. And at the end of the day, if you wanted to straighten this out, you could conceivably go in here with like maybe Mask Curve, and then just mask along these polygons, and then go back in with your Mask Pin. And we're just going to grab all of these polys in here. And if you Control-Alt-Tap to kind of clean that up a little bit, Control-Tap to invert that, you can go back in here with your Clip Curve, and then as long as you're clipping, that gradient's going to pull those verts back out. So if we Alt-Tap here and match that angle, we can pull those verts out to that flat plane there. And let me match that a little bit better here. Might be easier with a mouse if your tablet hand is unreliable as mine. Control drag again, and then go in here with your H-Polish brush. And then there you go. You can flatten. You can clip out to those shapes here. So we'll go back in with our H-Polish brush and hold down Alt. We'll clean this little inside edge up just a little bit. Again, not perfect, but close enough for government work to give us just a nice clean split down here. And of course, you can go through and you can sculpt in a bevel if you want to. Or like I keep saying, you can go through and rebuild this and model in any sort of bevel or chamfer or anything you want to put in there. But for now, just kind of slicing this up, I think I'm going to go ahead and call that slice a day.